All right, so let's talk specifically about our non-exercise activity category. But first, let's talk about some research they've done. They've replicated this in a few different ways, but what they do is they get a group of people and they have them be sedentary. They have them do nothing, just sit on a couch for a long extended period of time, maybe a few days. And then what they have half of them do is exercise. They have the other half not exercise. What they tend to see is the people who are sedentary and then they exercise are pretty resistant to the changes of exercise. So this is astounding. So this is why so many people struggle. Because let's look at what most Americans' days are. We wake up, we sit down and we eat breakfast. Then we sit in a car and go to work. We sit at work and work. We sit in a car to go to lunch. We sit at lunch. We sit in a car to go back to work. We sit at work. We sit in a car to go home. We sit at the dinner table and we sit on the couch to watch TV, sitting all day long. Maybe there's some walking back and forth to some things, and maybe there's an hour of exercise worked in there. But what all of these studies point to is that hour of exercise is not resonating with your physiology. You're resistant to the metabolic changes if you're sedentary. If you're living a sedentary life, and what the CDC considers sedentary is going to be 8 or more hours of sitting down. And when you start looking at people's days, it is most people that are living in that sitting down, laying down, doing nothing for 8 or more hours. So when I say 8 or more hours, I'm not counting sleep. Don't count sleep for that one. Okay, so what do we need to do? Really, the key here is I'm going to have a few points, but the points aren't necessarily to hit this thing. It's really the intent. And the intent is to not be sedentary. And so what is the benefit of walking around and exercising and moving around? Is blood flow, okay? So the real intent on our big picture here is consistent blood flow, and let's not have long periods of time where we're inactive. So I don't sit, I've got a standing desk, but me just standing at my standing desk, way better than sitting, not good enough. I still have to move around. So we're looking at you at least every hour, get up and move around, get your heart rate moving, do whatever you need to get blood flowing. So first thing that we can track here is to make sure we're getting in 10,000 steps a day. There's really no actual magic to this number. This was a number, I forget who it was, but it was estimated that this is how far hunter-gatherers typically walked on a typical day. So there's no like real magic to what if you get 9,000, what if you get 11,000, good job. Okay, the real thing is if you sit all day and then go get 10,000 steps in and sit the rest of the day, you're missing the point. The whole point is for most people to be able to accumulate 10,000 steps in a day, you're going to have multiple bouts of walking, okay? So it's the multiple bouts of getting up and moving around. But let's take the scenario of, let's say you get up at your desk and you stretch and you move around and you do things, 0 steps, okay? But don't act like you're failing or anything. That's great. So maybe if you have a few breaks at work and you move around, maybe you subtract 1,000 or 2,000 steps for the 5 to 10 minutes of moving around that you're doing that's not getting counted. So just remember, it's the intent that matters. 10 minutes of mobility. And below this, I'm going to have a follow-along mobility video that you can get an example of the things that I like to do. And I just like to call it weird yoga-ish mobility. And I translate the functional positions that we're using in the gym. We use them in the gym because those are the functional positions that we need for real life. It's going to be the positions we need to be in to carry things, to put things over our head, to pick things up off the ground, yada, yada, yada. It's let's put ourselves to end range positions that promote blood flow, but also that help use these functional and develop these functional positions. So 10 minutes of movement and mobility. I like to do some weird yoga-ish stuff. I like to focus on my breathing, relaxing, and I like to pull out the foam roller and lacrosse ball and work specific muscles, tendons, tissues, joints, stuff like that. I've got a bunch of this mobility video on movementlink.fit on the mobility section, so check that out. But our goal is to get 10 minutes. I do this first thing in the morning. It is the first thing. I start my coffee, movement and mobility every single day. I don't get to have my coffee until I do it. Some people, it works out better to do it at night, and it is a great way to down-regulate to get yourself ready for sleep. But let's make sure that we're prioritizing getting this in. Something I'll say, and this is something I do mention in this program again, is something we got to get good at is just following through on the things that you want yourself to do. So I've been doing 10 minutes of mobility every single day at this point for the last 2 years. But I can tell you, I do it first thing in the morning. There hasn't been a single morning where I've wanted to do it. So that's pretty incredible. Out of 2 years, not one morning where I woke up wanting to do movement and mobility. But here's the thing, the brain follows the body. It's just like doing dishes. It feels like it's gonna ruin your life, and as soon as you start doing dishes, you're fine. Same thing, as soon as I start doing mobility, I'm fine, and it's usually about 1 minute, I'm already happy that I'm doing it. But here's the kicker. Out of those 2 years, not a single day that I did mobility was I upset that I did mobility. So that's the key, is let's imagine that I let in the moment Kyle, remember that guy sucks, let's imagine that I let that guy make decisions. 2 years of not wanting to do it, how many times would I have not done mobility? It would have been a lot, but I haven't regretted it a single time. So what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is you do it, and then afterwards you decide, hey, maybe doing 10 minutes of mobility isn't really fitting in what I want my life to be, this and that. I'm not getting the results from it, blah, blah, blah. Let's change the strategy, and instead of doing that, I'm going to do this instead. That's worst case scenario. You wasted 10 minutes, you did some mobility, not a big deal. What's the best case scenario? I've done mobility every single day for the last 2 years. I feel great. My joints, my body, everything is feeling better than it ever has in my entire life. Obviously, I'm older than I've ever been in my entire life. So the downside, not that bad, and the upside is freaking huge. So just do it. Figure out how to get yourself to do it. You don't have to feel like doing it. Do it. Reflect out on it afterwards. The other thing, a lot of people think this is woo-woo stuff. I did before I started messing with it. Meditation or breathing exercises. There's an app I use called Calm. There's another app called Headspace. I haven't used it, but I'm sure it's the same thing. But basically just taking 10 minutes, you can do longer meditation sessions and stuff like that. But if you just take 10 minutes, especially on a stressful day, it can completely change the course of your day. Just focusing on breathing, going through it. I had a coach in the gym. She was having a pretty stressful day. This is one of my favorite stories. And so I ended up coaching the beginning of her next class, and I just handed her my phone with headphones and the Calm app. And I said, hey, just go hang out over there, listen to this app. And her experience was so similar to my experience with it, it was hilarious. So what happened is she's in there, and as she's listening to it, the whole time she's trying to follow along, trying to bring her thoughts back, focusing on breathing. Thoughts go this way, try and bring them back. And the whole time you kind of feel like this isn't doing anything. It's kind of a funny feeling in the moment, and you're like, doesn't matter, I'm gonna do it. And you hang in there, hang in there. And then afterwards, she was like, it was a whole new day. That's what happens to me too. So I don't meditate every single day. I kind of might play around with trying that. I have done that in the past. But what I reserve meditation for is those days where I'm super stressed out, I'm not feeling great. Maybe I have a lot of work to do, but I can't really get rolling on anything. And it sounds funny that if you have a lot of work to do, to go and do nothing for 10 minutes, but it is incredible how clear things are. The 10 minutes is up, you kind of just start on. For me, it always turns my day around. So play around with this. Even if you're a non-believer, cool, don't care. What's the worst thing that could happen? You're gonna get 10 minutes of some quiet time, cool. If it is something that's beneficial to you, like it was for me, then you've got this tool in your back pocket and you can pull it out when you need to. So non-exercise activity, this is extremely, extremely important. Some of you might have a job where staying active all day, this is something you almost don't need to think about. And the only thing you really need to do is experiment with this a little bit. Make sure you're getting your mobility in. Some people have a desk job, and if you've got a desk job, that's where it's gonna be a little bit trickier to get these 10,000 steps in. So I got another video coming up on that. to help you figure out how to get those steps in and that movement in. Talk to you soon.